Greetings to class 12 and welcome to your economics class once again. I am your Nigam sir and today we are going to study a new chapter, that is theory of consumer behavior. The syllabus from this topic are cardinal utility analysis, meaning of utility, total utility and marginal utility, relationship of total utility and marginal utility, law of diminishing marginal utility, consumers equilibrium one commodity case, law of eco-marginal utility, then ordinal utility analysis, indifference curve, its meaning and properties, indifference map, consumers budget line, consumers equilibrium with related to indifference curve analysis. In this lesson 1 video, we will be studying about the cardinal utility analysis. We will also study what do you mean by utility, total utility and marginal utility, and we will try to find out the relationship between marginal and total utility. Now let us move to the topic, that is cardinal utility analysis. Cardinal utility analysis was first developed by Pareto and Alfred Marshall. So according to this analysis of consumer behavior, what they told is that according to cardinal utility analysis, it is the approach which assumes that utility which the consumer gets from consuming a certain unit of a commodity can be measured in cardinal or quantitative terms such as 1, 2, 3 and so on. So this means that whenever a consumer buys a commodity, he normally buys that commodity in order to get satisfaction or in order to get utility. So according to the cardinal utility given by this economist, that is Pareto and Alfred Marshall, according to them, the utility can be measured or expressed in terms of numbers, that is utility can be given a number to it. So that theory is what is known as cardinal utility analysis. Now let us understand the meaning of utility. Utility refers to the one satisfying power of a commodity. It is also the ability or the capacity of a commodity to satisfy the human wants. For example, whenever we are thirsty, we drink water in order to satisfy our thirst. Similarly, whenever we are hungry, we consume bread or we consume any other food in order to satisfy our hunger. So the satisfaction given by the water during our thirst or the satisfaction given by the bread during our hunger is known as utility. Usually the unit of measurement of utility is utils. Now let us understand what do you mean by total utility. Total utility refers to the total amount of satisfaction that is derived by the consumer from the consumption of a certain quantity of a commodity. For example, whenever I am hungry, suppose I consumed 4 apples, then the total satisfaction given by all the 4 apples is known as total utility. Now let us understand what do you mean by marginal utility. The term marginal means addition. So marginal utility refers to the additional utility that is derived by the consumer from the consumption of additional unit of a commodity. It is an addition made to the total utility from the consumption of one more unit of a commodity. For example, if a consumer is hungry and he consumes 1 apple and he gets some amount of satisfaction. Suppose 1 apple does not fulfill his hunger and he consumes 1 more apple or he consumes the second apple. So whatever satisfaction he gets from the second apple is known as the marginal utility. So here we have been given with the utility schedule. There are three columns, one for unit of mangoes, another for total utility, which is measured in utils, and another for the marginal utility, which is also measured in utils. One mango gives him the total utility of 10 utils, and marginal utility is also the same, that is 10 utils. Suppose he consumes 2 mangoes. So the total satisfaction that he gets from consuming 2 mangoes is 17 utils. And the marginal utility that he gets from the second mango is 17. Is 7. That is 17 minus 10. The total utility that he gets from 3 mangoes is 21 utils. And the marginal utility that he gets from the third mango is 4. That is 21. That is 21 is the total utility that he gets from 3 mangoes minus 17. 17 is the total utility that he gets from 2 mangoes. So 4 utils have been added by consuming the third mango. So that is what is known as marginal utility. So here we have been given the total and marginal utility curves by plotting the utility schedule. In our x-axis, we normally measure the number of mangoes consumed, and in y-axis, in the first panel, we measure the total utility, and in the second panel, we are drawing the marginal utility curve. That is why in y-axis we have the marginal utility. So if you look at the first panel of the diagram, we have the total utility curve. The total utility curve initially increases with the consumption of mangoes, and it reaches maximum at point M when the consumer consumes 4 mangoes. And if he consumes more mangoes, the total utility starts to fall and it comes down. So that is why the total utility curve is concave from upward. So if you look at the second panel, then we have the marginal utility curve drawn. So marginal utility curve always is a downward sloping curve. Initially, the marginal utility curve is maximum. That is, whenever the consumer consumes the first mango, then the marginal utility is always maximum. That is 10 utils. If he consumes the second mango, then the total utility falls to 7. And whenever he consumes the fourth mango, then the marginal utility falls to 1. So in this way, the marginal utility becomes 0 when he consumes the 5 mangoes, and marginal utility becomes negative as he consumes more number of mangoes. So this is the diagram of the total utility curve and the marginal utility curve. Now let us see the relationship between the total utility and the marginal utility. There are 3 relationships between the total utility and marginal utility, and this is very important. So if you look at the first relationship, then when the total utility increases and it is at an increasing phase, then at that point of time the marginal utility is positive. So look at the diagram. Look at the first panel, whenever the total utility rises from 0 to 22, that is till point M, at that phase, look at the second panel, marginal utility curve is always positive. That is it is above the x-axis. So the second relationship is that whenever the total utility reaches maximum, marginal utility is 0. So look at the diagram again. When the total utility reaches maximum at point M, at that point, look at the second panel. At that point, the marginal utility has touched the x-axis. That is, marginal utility has become 0. The third relationship is that whenever total utility decreases, marginal utility is negative. So whenever the total utility decreases or starts to fall from point M on the diagram, then at that phase marginal utility becomes negative. That is, marginal utility goes beyond the x-axis and it becomes negative. So these are the three relationships between the total utility and the marginal utility. That is, total utility, whenever total utility increases, marginal utility is positive. When total utility reaches maximum at point M, marginal utility becomes 0. And whenever total utility starts to fall from point M, then marginal utility becomes negative. So these are the three relationship between total utility and the marginal utility. We have come to the end of this video. Thank you everyone for